I think we could reduce the spacing a little bit in between the letters, don't you?
Reduce it by a couple
Yeah, I
of
mean,
inches.
the total is actually 16 inches
So you
here.
want it 14, you can drop it. You can make
I
that
have mine.
Yeah.
14.
So-
I can't help but thinking we could go to, it just looks so big. Be interesting to see one of these out in the wild. I mean, maybe,
You're making me laugh. You always want to go down to 42.
I
know.
But you wrote on your old one, so you want to
Um,
keep it? Just don't mix them up.
Like I said, it
Those
just
are
has to deal
4-inch?
with the lettering.
what's that? Those are 4-inch letters.
4-inch.
I don't think you
Yeah.
can go lower than that at
I
35
do.
miles an hour.
Right.
Oh, no, I'd just like to see, like, there's one of these pasted up on a sign,
Oh,
to see what it looks like driving by.
oh, in the wild.
Yeah, I mean, like I was saying, the reason it's so long is to fit more letters. For...
I don't know, what's that 9?
Okay, I am. I'm ready.
All right.
You're fine.
Oh, well, we're just waiting for a second. Roe is here, but not here.
Yeah.
Here, no, I
Jerry.
duly noted.
For some reason or other, I don't know whether it's in Robert's rules or not, but for some reason or other, the minutes are always done first,
Yes.
approved, and then they,
Yeah,
you were commenting on that, and I don't know why, I don't know if it's in Robert's
it's the
rules
cut,
or
that's
not.
just, that's always been the custom.
Yeah.
The way it is.
Well, we're not going to deviate.
It's the
We
American
don't
way.
like change.
Yeah,
Don't you have Robert's rules?
Oh, I should have, there was an app
It's
for
gotten a
that.
lot cooler since I came in here.
Hi, how are you?
there is, but we don't wanna look at it.
Soaking up the
I'm sure there is, but I can't read the type, it's so
How are you,
small.
Rob?
I'm fine, how are you?
Very good, very good.
Okay. Well, welcome. Mike is not coming.
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay, let's call the meeting to order. Mimi Odgers is here to videotape our meeting. Hi.
Mimi.
Hi. Sorry I missed you last time.
Well, we missed you. All right, first for approval, the minutes of the May 25th meeting.
Second.
Any comments or?
There were a couple of little small grammaticals, but I took care of them with,
All right, all in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
Great. Laura Hanson is here to talk about the tourism sign policy, so
We got a vote to take that out of
yeah,
order.
someone make a motion.
I'll make a motion, we take that out of order.
All in favor of that?
Hi.
Great. All right.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for taking it out of order. I appreciate it. So there is a newly revised draft form in front of you it's fresh off the press for the policy, 4 pages long, and there's also a new application. I just wanted to go over a couple of corrections that Ned asked me to make, and Jim Dostal. Part 1 in the description, letter C. We rephrased it to use the same format as the MUTCD 2009, which I believe you also got a copy of this in your packet. And the part that was revised was near the end. It was the same in the beginning. Tourist-oriented directional signs shall be used only on rural city conventional roads. And then I modified this part, and shall not be used on conventional roads in urban areas or at interchanges on freeways or expressways. That's the wording from the MUTCD, and there was some concern about if we put in, you know, the central business district or how we declare the downtown areas. Part D, the only thing I modified there is in the second sentence I just said these type of signs will not be approved for state-owned property as well as certain state-owned intersections.
And where are you reading now?
I'm still on
1D.
page 1,
D,
Jim,
okay,
on letter D, part 1.
yeah,
Do you see that? Okay.
yeah.
So that was another modification. And then what we can do is we can skip down
Could
to...
I
Sure.
stop right there? Where it says Florence Street,
And
Route
Route
9.
9.
That should be Florence Leeds, Florence and Leeds. And that's Route 9.
Well, Florence Street intersects with Route 9 at Clemens Market. And that's where the state highway layout begins.
Florence Street intersection is what you want to say?
Well, Florence Street intersects with Route 9 by the Look Restaurant, and that's where
Yeah.
the state layout begins.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, this is the
Okay, yeah.
modification
Yeah,
I
got
did,
it right here.
as well
Yeah.
as certain state-owned intersections.
Oh, all right,
So
okay.
that's
So
one of
that
the
that'll clarify
intersections. Yeah,
Okay,
okay?
yeah,
All right. Let's see, everything kept the same. If you go down to section 3 for permit fees and duration,
can we stop before
Oh.
we get there?
sure,
The section, or app 2,
2.
C. The applications will be received and must be approved by the Board of Public Works. Are we gonna approve every one of these applications? I think we wanna develop the policy and the department approves of them. These aren't, every one of these signs isn't gonna come before the board.
Well, the challenge we ran into was,
We're not,
all of this is presuming that we have approved a sign.
right,
At least then you know what happens after that.
that's what I mean.
We ran aground trying to answer all of the questions, like, how about this road, how about that road? Well, what if it's all weird, you know, what about this intersection, doesn't that seem kind of crowded, or there's
Yeah.
a hedge there? We just kind of, the wheels came off the train
I understand that.
when we tried to make such a
But
thorough
we're
policy.
clarifying that now. And I think that we're not creating work for the board, we're creating policy. And we should develop the policy and let the department do the approval. And then if there gets to be a question on any sign, it can come before the board. My opinion only.
Yeah, no,
I'm just thinking, we aren't trying to create work for the board has plenty of work.
our time is very valuable.
Well, especially with all those other projects we're working on.
Well, what do you guys think?
Well, I could make an offer, I sort of see where you're going, and I think maybe we just want to make sure that whoever the applicants are, the application is subject to review by the Board of Public Works. But there may be situations where it's just blatantly obvious, there's no review needed, it's like cut and dry.
Yeah, and that's
The
why I don't
DPW
think
can't
it's,
approve the application. But I can see, I mean, how many of these are we gonna get, a dozen?
Yeah, I think we have about 15 to 20 requests at best.
Okay,
They're
so
outstanding.
I'll bet you a lot of them are gonna be,
cut and dry,
Exactly.
I think. And that's what I'm thinking.
but it would also be, it would maybe be helpful to both parties, if it makes sense to you, just kind of leave it open, that it's subject to review by the Board of Public Works, subject to review and approval by the Board of Public Works. But that doesn't mean that we have to literally review and approve every single one of them.
Plus, we might also, since this is a new policy, we're trying to get our feet under us in terms of how it will work. We might choose to be the review process for the first year, and then once we have a sense of, that everyone has a sort of common understanding of what we mean, then delegate it to staff.
Ned or Jim, do you have a?
I'm fine with MJ's suggestion.
Me too.
Okay.
All right,
I'm sure
we'll
we're
do
gonna
that.
have some requests that we're gonna ask for the board's interpretation.
Mrs. Hanson.
Excuse me, yeah, I second your opinion because I think there's gonna be some applications that might involve, for example, logos or something. At some point in the future, we might need to add another section to the tourism sign policy or tweak it a little bit, if that's an official term, in a year or something like that. I think it'd be good to expose everybody to some of the different types of applications.
Okay. Expose us.
Mm-hmm.
So keep going down this path.
That's fine.
So is it okay to keep that as Board of Public Works then, for 2 Part C?
Yeah, it sounds like it's certainly okay for now, and we can always
Right.
relax that.
Let's put it on a tickler file for next year, or just like that. We can sort of-
Well,
We'll sunset
get
this.
20
Review, yeah, do
if
an
we do
annual
3 or
review
4
of
at
it
the
or something.
first, the next
meeting.
meeting, we'll probably be doing it
Four-hour
sooner.
process, it's like,
Okay,
All right,
we're
so
done.
Sure,
Yes.
sometimes in a document like this, you might see language where something must be approved, must be reviewed and approved by the Board of Public Works or their designee or something like that. And that way,
Right.
at a future
It's
meeting,
another
we
way
can
to
decide,
delegate it,
geez,
yeah.
we want Ned to do this, or Laura, not Jim, but. Then you could designate them to do it.
Should I reword that then to, or their designee?
It
Yes.
sounds like a good,
Then
good
that
addition.
leaves the
That's-
door
that's
open for
very
us to
good.
make that change immediately if we decide to do it. Yeah, so that's the kind of direction I was headed in.
Okay, good. So back to 3A?
Okay, 3A, the $500, I was talking to Ned about it, and basically, that was because we usually do a $250 trench permit, and signs are about $100 a piece to $125. And then there's my time to do the dig safe and the installation, so we thought 500 was reasonable.
Clarification on that is that every site we do a dig safe on is a new trench permit. So literally if, let's say Goddard's Winery is back in here, they wanted a sign on 66 and on Chesterfield Road, that should be two distinct applications for signs because of the cost of doing the trench permit and each signs and so on. It isn't, if someone comes in, like KOA comes in, they want to put 10 signs across the city, and it's going to be 1 fee for 500 for 10 signs.
Right.
Just want to make sure
Per
that
sign.
that's clear in here, that it's not really clear right now.
Then I should modify Part A to say for each
For each, and
street.
For each location,
For each sign.
So
each
if you're going,
application.
if you're going up Route 66, east or west, and you have one sign on the east, one sign on the west going to Goddard's,
Mm-hmm.
that's $1,000. Okay.
That's the same dig safe number though.
It would be the same dig safe if we do
Oh.
it as one trench permit. So I guess the question is, how would you do that to localities, so if they're within,
If they're within that, we should reduce it by the amount of the dig safe permit, which is $250.
that's correct.
So could you make a new section B that somehow explains that if there's a situation where only one dig safe permit is required?
Okay, let's back up to Section 2, Part B, and we'll read it. Each application will cover one city trench permit or one dig safe number assigned for a requested street. One application may cover 2 tourist directional signs if they are on the same street and can use the same dig safe number. A separate application and application fee will be required for each street requesting a tourist directional sign, which might not be what you want. You might want one application for each sign. Is that what you're saying now?
aren't we also providing the sign?
Yes. I mean,
Yes.
So that second sign is $125 plus the standards must be $50 for the two of them.
Well,
You just take the dig safe off of it, that's all, for the second sign.
Yeah, so the second sign would be like $200 or $250 by the time.
$250. Half the 500.
do you want me to add a sentence then that if there's 2 signs on the same street, there would be an additional $250 fee for the second sign?
If they
There
can be
you go.
covered by one dig safe and one trench permit.
Okay. Okay, I can do
Yeah.
that. No problem. Street.
A lot of
I
times.
guess I'm not understanding the logic. It just seems like if you have a street and you have one directional sign here and one sign here, you can have 2 trenches and 2 dig safe permits.
But actually, dig safe will come in and survey the whole intersection as one.
Oh, okay, I
Yeah,
didn't know
but
that.
dig
One-
safe
one fee.
doesn't charge fee.
That's the trench, this is the trench permit.
Trench
though.
permit, that's the fee.
That's correct.
But according to Laura, we do the trench permit sort of off the dig safe. We probably wouldn't ask for 2 trench permits if it was.
If they're in a localized location to each other, we go with one permit. So if we were to put 2 signs in, we'd probably do it under one permit, but if they're a mile apart, it'd definitely be 2 permits.
Yeah.
Like Bay State Gas, they come in for a permit to run the line down the street, we issue one permit for the street. Versus if they went to this house and this house, they'd be doing just separate permits.
Huh. Seems like 2 trenches though.
Well, a trench for a sign is a hole drilled in.
Okay.
You know, it's not
Through
digging up
pavement.
the pavement and so
Other
on.
than, I think that's the biggest concern of the trench permit is the pavement.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But it's in the city's right of
Well,
ways.
you also don't wanna put a signpost into a gas main.
Well, that's why you call dig safe.
Right.
we have a lot of our gas
But you may
mains
call
now.
dig safe, and where you intended to put the sign, you can't put the sign, so now you're looking at something else. Maybe you have to go to 2 posts, or who knows what the solution would be, but it changes things, so.
Yeah,
But I know that some of the cost of this is for the sign.
Change that.
yeah, that's half of it.
And for the city staff time to go out and to put it up.
Right.
So Laura will adjust these.
City
Yes,
staff
I
has to
will.
go and mark
I
the dig
will
safe.
add that.
Have to mark with the paint, too, so. Multiple trips.
Okay.
So,
Okay, so 3B is the same. 3C on the next page, that is the $50 fee that we wanted to charge annually for maintaining it. And Ned had me write in here that the annual fee is due by January 1st for the upcoming year.
Yeah,
And then part D has to do with a comment that Jim made at the last meeting. I'll just read it. If the annual fee is not paid in a timely manner, the board shall order the tour sign removed if the account is not balanced by January 31st of each year, and a removal fee of $50 will be issued. A reinstallation fee of $100 will be issued if the owner desires the sign to be reinstated once it has been removed. I believe this is related to something with the sandwich boards, Ned? You have
Yes,
some sort of
That's
system
correct.
set up?
I think it should be noted, at least talked about here at the board, that if, you're not gonna charge a fee if a business closes and you take the sign down, you're not gonna charge them a fee.
correct. I was gonna suggest, if the annual fee is not paid in a timely manner, the board shall order the tourist sign removed. Period. Delete the rest of that sentence and the $50. And then basically, should a business wish to have a removed sign reinstalled, there will be a fee of $100. I think it'd be problematic to get $50 out of someone who's had their sign taken out. And there's no, if they want to put back up,
If
there's
they
a
wanna put back up, it's gonna cost them
there's a
$100.
logical point there where you can stick your
Yeah.
hand out, but
Yeah,
it's a little slippery.
I could go with that.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to take out that part. And that sentence of a reinstallation fee, that's all the same.
Yeah,
And then I'll add a part F about if a business is closing, the sign will be removed at no charge.
Well, you don't
Yeah.
have to, because it's,
We're just gonna take it down.
Just gonna take it down.
Okay, so I don't have to do that now.
I have a hypothetical question. Sometimes businesses change hands. So the post is fine, there's no need for new dig safe, but somebody wants to change the sign.
To a new name.
Yeah.
Not keep the same
Smitty's
name.
becomes
Sam's.
Sam's.
should be $250 fee. Half
There's no
the,
need for a new trench permit because
Right.
the
No need
post
for a
is
new trench
already
permit,
there.
but there's a need for a new sign and
There's
somebody to
need
go
for a
install it, so I would say it's $250, I would think.
yeah,
Because they have to do a new sign with a different name.
Correct.
So I guess
So
we
you
need
got
to stick.
That's
And
gonna
then
be part F. I'll just make a part F on that then.
Theoretically, the post remains in the ground and you just
Yeah.
take the
should a business
sign down.
wish to have the
Name change.
wording.
the information on the sign adjusted or changed,
Or maybe they decided to change that.
yeah.
Yeah, well, that's right.
E. coli, new name.
Smitty's Village Store.
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
I'm gonna
Okay.
excuse myself from the meeting now because
Okay. Good luck.
I'll leave it up to you to do dimensions and design.
And congratulations.
Ah, good night.
Thank you, MJ.
Thanks, MJ.
I think the rest of that page was all right. If you go to the third page, section 4.3 for arrangement and size of signs. Parts B and C, I just had to do some rewording in that because it was confusing, talking about signs and panels and the installation. So I just I don't wanna read it all out, you can all read it, but see if it makes sense to you. Trying just to clarify that a little bit.
So, the number of sign panels on each sign, on each installation, so the installation is the post.
Right, and there's 4 of them allowed.
I think it makes sense.
Okay.
I mean, you could add the word post in the after installation. Somebody's gotta be that literal. I mean, that's the way I read it.
Are they, the number, but each sign panel will be a separate panel.
Right, but if there were more than 4, let's say there were 6 signs on the intersection, there'd be a cluster of 4, and then at some point earlier, there'd be a cluster of 2.
But for each particular business, there will be an independent sign, because otherwise.
Okay. I think everything else was the same. The only other thing I wanted to point out is there's an example on the board which isn't completely accurate because it's actually 16.5 inches instead of 15 inches high, but it is 48 inches wide, and the letters are 4 inches tall. So it doesn't have the blue background. That would be a lot of blue ink, but at least it's an example of what we're thinking of.
That's gotta shrink by what, 2 inches, 2.5 inches?
Vertically, 1.5.
Oh, yes, 1.5.
1.5.
Which I believe, just take away some of the spacing in between. Probably half an inch in between each of those.
Now, in Vermont, these signs are brown and white. Brown background, white letters.
So are their state police cruisers.
It's true, so they may have a brown thing. And the state guidelines don't reserve brown, but suggest brown for things like this purpose, state parks, boat
You're
launch.
saying the state of Massachusetts?
Yes. Is that correct?
The NUTCD actually recommends blue, a blue background.
So Vermont is off.
Well, Vermont's a different state. I don't know why they like brown.
But the thing you sent me, I thought showed brown. I mean,
This
if you
is
say no.
if you look in your packet on page 2, it talks like at the very top. It says the standard tourist-oriented directional sign shall have 1 or more signs, panels, blah blah blah. At the end, she'll have a white legend and border on a blue background. They say that a couple of times in the MUTC. This is a 2009 MUTCD, so it's been upgraded, and I'm not too sure what Vermont uses.
All right.
Does MassDOT have a different color scheme than MUTCD in regard to door signs?
One of the documents you gave me, I thought had brown. You always see it for like state parks and
Well, I wonder if
maybe that's being
That
phased out.
might be
Might-
federal.
Well, I wonder if the DCR has a different.
Color palette.
All right.
So the other page you should have is the application. And I believe Ned had me put an address, our address on there. And I think there was just one other small thing. I don't have mine with me. It's just something about, it was down, it said
At the
of, intersection of, yeah. And the only other thing is there's 15 characters. When I asked them to write out their application to make 15 characters at the most, that's what's designating your 48-inch width. So if you want to go down at all, then I'm going to have to change the amount of characters there. That's the only, not too much difference on the application. So, and that's it.
I had a couple of things on the application. Number one, it says return the application to the Board of Public Works. Should be the Department of Public Works, because they don't come into our board meeting to give it to us. The other thing is a sign off by the chair of the board. Does he want to do that? Do you want to make that the, and where it says the other sign off is the Director of Public Works or his designee should be added there. And again, it's up to you.
No, I admit it. There, other than grave sites, there's not much that I sign individually like this.
Yeah. And again, that's
What
just,
normally happens on permits?
I sign
it's just my feeling that we don't wanna create work, we're not creating work for the board, we're creating policy.
Yeah, no, I agree,
Yeah.
I agree, that's a good point. So let's strike the,
Okay, so do you want me to say return application to Northampton Department of Public Works?
oh, I'd say for sure.
And you want me to cross out Board of Public Works Chairman,
Yeah.
doesn't have to sign? And you want me to say Department of Public Works Director, do I say or his designee?
Or his designee, yeah.
it. His or hers.
Yeah.
Going somewhere?
Not planning on it, but you never know who'll be here next.
I hope not.
Oh, it's a sign of respect, and we appreciate it.
All right. So, I'm sure, I think we could
I would
probably-
like to vote them as corrected,
Yes.
and I'll make a motion to that effect.
Second?
Any other questions or comments? All in favor of approving this new tourist sign policy?
Aye.
Opposed? No.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Oh.
Just so the board knows, we're putting together the language for the revolving fund for this.
Mhm.
It's possible it might move to city council next week for the first reading. If not, it would probably be the next meeting after that, just so you're aware of that. So that we'll be ready to implement this in the near future.
Great.
Good.
Okay.
So I'll give these corrections to you?
In Word.
Thank you to
Yeah,
the
in
staff for
Word.
doing this, because I think that this will clean things up a lot and help the betterment of our communities.
Great.
Great.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Okay.
Laura.
Thank you, Laura.
Right, is all set?
All set.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Night.
All right.
Okay, change order number 3 to contract 9611 for the Bradford Street Pumping Station to SEA Consultants in the amount of $7,700.
I move approval for the purposes of discussion.
Okay.
This is Amendment 3 to the Bradford Street Pump Station design and construction project that we have with SCA Consultants. I was going to give a little bit of an overview of Amendment number 3. We asked Vince Spada and Rob McCoy from SCA, who have been involved in the design and management of the construction project so far, to be available to respond to any questions that the board may have, given the size of the change order, which I'll talk about in a minute, in description. I had emailed this at the last minute to everybody on the board. I'm not sure if folks had had a chance to take a look at it, or if you'd like to have a copy, if you have a copy in front of you, or if you'd like to have a copy in front of you.
This is something that happened today?
Yesterday.
I looked at it.
It's quite a few pages.
19.
You got it.
So maybe the thing to do is...
Because I always like to see how much, if it's too much or not printing it out.
Yes.
Right.
Want to talk to us a little bit about it first?
I do.
Was there a drawing attached to it?
No, this is scrap paper.
Oh, okay, because that was the one thing that was missing for me, is like, where is this? I mean, I know what Bradford Street is, but I wanted to know where property lines were, and, you know, why this moved there, and why wasn't that moved
I don't think we
sooner?
know where the lines are.
Oh.
We don't know.
Well, what do we
So-
care then?
I got some serious questions here.
So I'll give you a little bit of a, sort of an overview, umbrella, kind of 50,000-foot view of what this all is, and then SEA can talk a little bit more about some of the specific scope items that changed along the way. I asked BJ to make a copy of this. Was a summary table that was attached to the amendment, which describes a little bit about what we're talking about with amendment number 3. The amendment request actually is for a credit in the amount of $7,754 to the original design contract. And the way the accounting, I wanted to talk about the accounting on this a little bit. If you look at this table that BJ's handing you. So there's a lot of numbers on this. I wanted to point out a couple of things. The change order consists of a number of different tasks. If you look to the very far right column, it says credit. There's a number of credits that are being proposed to the city for work, for scope work that was done under budget. So this amount of money is being provided back to the city because work was completed under budget. So if you just look down that column, you'll see that under preliminary design, there was an $11,586 credit proposed under this amendment. And further down, there's a $90,002 credit under bidding and construction administration. That's where we took the resident inspection engineering work out of the SEA contract and signed a separate contract with Bob Nordstrom. So the total credit down in that very...
And what was Bob Nelson's contract for?
Bob's contract was $51,150. So the total credit that's proposed here by taking the engineering out, the resident engineering out, and the completing work, in-scope work under budget is $101,588. That's that number in the very lower right portion of the table. The next column immediately to the left from the credit table is a column called additional fee. So this column, as you go down, is a fee, an increase in fee request for specific tasks. And you'll see that under preliminary design, which is the first group of numbers, there's a $32,872 request for fee. The final design, it was $33,381. And then under bidding and contract construction admin, $27,582 for a total of $93,834 is the requested increase in fee under this amendment. So if you look at the credit in the additional fee and you add those up, you get the overall credit of $7,754 that's proposed here. So the additional fee that's being requested covers a number of different things, which SEA can probably elaborate on more, but basically I think they can be easily categorized into two categories. One is out-of-scope service that was provided based on the city's request, so they did a number of different things for us during the course of the design. It wasn't in scope, things that we needed to have done. So that work was completed. They need to be paid for it. It's incorporated in this. And then there were also, the other category I would say would be an increase in fee for work that was in scope as described in the original contract. And they're seeking additional fee due to the complexity of the design of the project. And that was one of the reasons why I wanted to have them here, to talk about the complexity of the design a little bit. Because it's easy to understand out of scope. I can tell you they did this plan, that plan, this permit, that permit that wasn't in scope, and it's pretty easy to understand. The complexity of a design, whether it was, additional scope, it gets a little more complicated to appreciate, I think.
So Jim, could you approximate how much is due to the city having asked them to take on tasks that were specifically,
I think
what amount of this is related to that?
if you go through this, there's dollar amounts on every one of them.
I can't do that, because I don't have the breakdown that specifically does that, because there were some out-of-scope things that were combined, some out-of-scope things that we requested were combined with other things that were additional level of effort for in-scope items that were then combined into a number. I can just give you one small example of that. We needed to do a Conservation Commission permit on this particular project, and we didn't have that in scope. We asked them to do it, short time frame. They got the application done and in, and they did the application. They came to a meeting. So that was something I asked them to do, which is clearly out of scope. But the fee for that is mixed in with some other fees for some other things. So it's not that easy for me to kind of tease out things that we'd specifically asked for versus the increased level of effort on project complexity type things. I don't know, based on this, I can't do it. I don't know if that's...
It'd just be a guess on our part, basically.
So at this point, I don't think it's something that...
What would that guess be?
I don't know, we haven't gone through and tried to
Is it
discern
a
that.
third of this? Is it
I don't know.
a tenth of this? Is it half of it?
Well, it was stipulated under I can't answer the question, but I just remember that it was stipulated within each description, which would affect it.
Right. So you know, they would need to go back and look at actual timesheets, and people were charging. This is broken down by task. So the way the 19-page amendment was structured was certain things that were done on a particular task. If it was out of scope, it was billed under a task, and not tracked separately in terms of accounting. So they'd need to go back to actual timesheets and look at the records of who worked on that Conservation Commission permit, and then tease that out to be able to add everything up. So I think the way that they were tracking the accounting in their office didn't allow for easy, you know, sort of an easy accounting of work that was directly on the scope versus.
Yeah, that's what I say would be a guess on that part. You know, we have to sort of make some broad assumptions as to who was doing what at the time, if we could do that at all. But.
So Jim had touched a little bit on the Bob Nelstrom contract was $51,000. We took $90,000 out of the SEA contract on the inspection. Just a couple of other tidbits, I guess. The original SEA contract value was $343,800. So the bottom line is, this amendment number 3 is looking for a credit of $7,754, but actually there's an actual increase in fee of $93,834 for additional services provided that they're here to talk about. So that just puts that into a little bit of perspective for you.
So it's a 30% increase
That
over
would,
the original.
that would be true, 93,000 versus 343.
And if you take out the 90, it's more like a 40% increase.
But the 11,000 credit reduces that to 82.
The
So it's a
11,000
little lower
credit.
percentage.
Yeah, a little bit lower.
Could we focus on some of the bigger items in here, like the easement questions?
Well, the easement questions.
I don't know what that means in this case.
Yeah, the existing pump station is located on a parcel on Bradford Street, or it's actually not even officially a road, actually. The assumption was that that was a continuation of Bradford Street. In getting into it more and doing survey, we found that easement transfer, or the right for the city to occupy that particular parcel, was never transferred from the DCR. It's Department of Conservation and Recreation property. And way back when, it was supposed to be deeded to the city for this work, and evidently that never happened. So now we were into a situation of trying to prepare negotiations, number one, with DCR, getting DCR approvals, and then preparing survey and easement plans to do that work.
It also led to some additional analysis early on, because once we realized that there were some ownership-related issues with that particular parcel, we started to look at other parcels, including one right up the road. We ended up looking at 2 additional parcels, one only a few hundred feet away, which is privately owned, and then also the middle of the roundabout, or the circular area over in the industrial park. So we looked at developing some additional alternatives to see if a pump station could be located there, and looking at some of the advantages and disadvantages of that, which also included looking at some of the existing infrastructure to make sure that if you were to put a pumping station in those locations, that you could get the flow eventually to where it needs to go.
But you came back to the original.
We came back to the original. Yeah, we actually developed a memorandum identifying all those advantages and disadvantages, and making a recommendation, despite the challenges associated with the, with that ownership issue, to proceed down that path.
How about the soil conditions at the site where we ended up?
Right, we assumed that since there was a structure there, that replacing it in kind would not cause any concerns. And that's really what our scope and fee was based on. And we went out there and did a soil boring, and found out that it was all very low bearing material, zero blow count type of material, that really could not support the type of structure that we were proposing for that site. And it changed our whole approach on the design for that, just on constructability aspects of it alone.
Excuse me, are you telling me that you did the borings after the bidding?
No, we did the borings after we had submitted our scope and fee for that. So our scope took it from start to finish. So it took it from doing a feasibility plan to a preliminary design, final design, bidding, and construction. So when we submitted our scope and fee, we didn't have that information.
So the borings were part of our job to do, as part of the preliminary design, to go out and characterize
And the
the
borings
soils.
unearthed the problem.
Yes.
Yeah, that led to some concerns that Vin talked about, but just expanding on that a little bit. We, instead of, for example, being able to drop the separate wet well and dry well on, say, a good crushed stone foundation, we ended up having to design a more extensive foundation mat. It's almost like it's floating, if you will, because of the bearing capacity of the soil is so low. And there's a lot of design that goes into that type of foundation structure to make sure the loads are balanced appropriately, making sure you're addressing anti-flotation, things like that. So it was a much different design approach.
And all of that was in constraints of the original location. Afterwards, we did find out that there were wetlands on the site, which limited where we could place the building. And not only that, but limited the extent that we could place a pad that could sit on, which might make it an easier design. We were limited to our particular area, which had further constraints.
Will there be any differentiation between the two, the old station and the new one? Being on different soils?
The old one will be coming out. So we're gonna be actually doing a bypass, a temporary bypass of the flows while the new one is going, the new one's being placed in service.
All elements of the new station will be resting on that foundation slab that was designed.
So is this mat like steel reinforced concrete?
Yeah, it's if you want, I can break out the drawings. It's up to you. It's basically it's a 2 foot thick concrete mat.
Yeah.
I want to say the dimensions are about maybe 34 feet by 44 feet plus or minus. And it's designed to go out to support the load, obviously, of the wet well, which is basically buried. There's hatches at grade, and also the separate dry well structure, which is a 3 level structure.
Buried quite a ways down.
Yeah, quite a ways down, and the challenge was, like I said, it's literally like a mat, so you got to make sure the loads are balanced exactly right, and it's sort of an iterative process. You design the mat for shear strength, to make sure you've got the proper bearing capacity over the soil. If you have too small of an area, because of the low bearing capacity of the soil, it would basically sink.
Right.
So we got to make sure we get that right, make sure we get the shear strength right, and then you go back and you look at, okay, are the loads balanced to the point where they need to be to make sure that this thing's not going to tilt. That's the other thing that we need to look at.
I assume all of this is in the drawings that the contractor's working.
Yeah, that's the final product. I mean, of course, we have all the calculations and everything to back up all the work that we did, but basically it's all reflected on, a handful of drawings. You can see the design of the foundation mat, which doesn't necessarily reflect all the work behind the scenes that went into that, but that's correct. That's where it's reflected.
How about the pump construction services, which I have written in here, pump design, that it's a $21,000 item.
Yeah, that's, again, based on the fact that we had more structural components, more architectural components, more geotech components to that. It increased the number of shop drawings that we have to be submitted, and that's really what that's based on.
So it wasn't redesigning the pumping, it was the structure.
Well, now we're talking about the construction phase of this,
What's under here is task 2.
Task 3, bidding and
Task 3,
construction.
number 2.
The construction administration.
Yeah.
that's what I'm referring to, yeah. So that's the increase basically in the shop drawing reviews and the.
So what happens, we design it, we have contract drawings, but then the contractor will come in and it's their responsibility to support what are called submittals or shop drawings, where they lay out like the detailed steel reinforcing fabrication drawings, and they submit all that to us. We review it to make sure it's in general conformance with our contract documents. So there were those additional submittals that Vin referred to. For example, with the foundation mat, part of the foundation structure, there's also a vertical support wall to support part of the generator building, which we had to locate adjacent to the main pump station building, again because of the site constraints. So a sort of unique setup from that standpoint, trying to work around those constraints. So there were foundation or submittals related to that, and also the architectural drawing that we had. So we have, for example, because of the way the pump station building and the generator building are situated relative to one another, we have basically like a double return hip roof. So there's a lot of architectural details and things like that, additional submittals that we're also looking at to make sure that the contractor gets it right.
Because the original building wasn't going to be that shape.
That's right, that's right. We knew it was going to house a generator, or could house a generator. That decision was made about halfway through design to make sure the generator was inside, and that was part of our scope. What wasn't part of our scope was knowing that we basically had to create two separate buildings because of those site constraints.
Wish Mike was here.
I would prefer that we have time to really study this and read it and look at it before we make a decision on it. And so I would like to withdraw my motion for reviewing this tonight and put a motion on the floor to table this till the next meeting.
I do have to say, I'm a contractor, obviously not on this scale, but if I had change orders or felt that the work I had done differed materially from the work that I had set out to do and had priced for the customer, I would be prepared to come a little closer to how much of the new price was related to work they had asked me to do. Not to the penny, but it sounds like even within 10-20%, you'd be hard pressed to say how much of this 90,000 is the result of what Jim has asked you to do and how much is the result of the
Only
changes.
because we didn't even attempt that.
Yeah, I think at some point I would be prepared to speak to that point. It doesn't seem like an unreasonable question.
Yeah, whenever any charges that go to the job, there's description of each hourly charge that goes to the job. So I think it's just more of an exercise probably to go back and break it down differently than maybe the way that we have.
Just speaking for myself, and I'm not looking for to the penny or even to the $1,000 or $5,000. I mean, just but some sense of what that number might be.
So could we, to that end, could we have them add another column so that we have additional fee for audit scope and additional fee for owner requested scope changes, and then
Does that seem reasonable? I mean,
yeah,
you manage these things.
yes,
I think it's reasonable.
yeah.
Good comment.
I wouldn't think we would have to get it right down to the penny, but reasonably accurate definition.
We'll put that together.
Great.
Are you meeting in another month, or is it
2 weeks.
2 weeks, okay.
Is that true?
Then we start our summer schedule. It's
Oh,
on the
It
agenda.
is still spring. Outside.
This is
If you went
just
outside
spring,
like
you're
that,
right,
you
you're right,
you would
you're
immediately
right.
think, it's spring, it's spring.
apparently we'll be in
Looks
2
and
weeks.
feels
then.
like spring.
Doesn't feel like spring.
Great. Well, thank you for coming.
All right, thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Talk to you soon.
If I slow downhill, it feels like spring.
Yeah, but uphill.
No, it does not.
Okay, contract for computer network support services to Data Foundry in the amount of not to exceed $40,000.
Move approval?
Second.
This is our annual contract with our MIS person, George Danzinger, who owns a company called the Data Foundry. We've been using George for our network services for at least 12, if not 13 years here. So, last year, MIS was supposed to take this over in November, and they have failed to do so yet. They just don't have the resources to do it, even though it was the best intent of the mayor to make that happen. That department is underfunded and don't have the resources to handle the volume that we do here. So this is another one-year contract with George and Data Foundry, I should say, and hopefully some things will change at MIS that they'll be able to take over our services at some point in the future.
Questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Contract for on-call engineering to on-call engineering and the intermunicipal agreement with the town of Williamsburg to SEA Consultants in the amount of $6,400.
Move approval.
This is work that's been ongoing for about a year and a half or so. We had a 30-year agreement with the town of Williamsburg. We receive all their sewage and we treat it down at the plant. The 30-year-old agreement is rather lopsided because it only covers operational costs, but doesn't allow us to recover debt service, interest payments, things of that, for improvements to the wastewater treatment plant. So there's two components that they pay now. One is the operational cost, the other is what they call a interceptor fee, which is use of the trunk lines that go to the plant. They pay an annual fee. The old one was 30 years old. We kind of updated to modern standard languages. And what happened, we started working with an attorney out of the Land Wheels office. He left the practice, so we kind of left up in the air. I've had a lot of things on my plate, so this has been kind of lingering about. I approached SCA about providing the services. They do this on a regular basis with other communities, so this is a contract to finally get this new long-term agreement with Williamsburg executed.
So that, the last one expired about 3 years ago at this point?
Yeah, it was, I believe it was 2008, if I recall correctly.
And so in the interim, have they been paying some new amount, or are they still
They're
paying?
based on the old amount still, until we had quite a few meetings with them. The big thing we were trying to resolve over the past year with the meetings is they were trying to deal with our direct and indirect costs of why should we pay part of the mayor's salary? Why should we pay part of the city council that approves some contractual obligations and things like that? So a lot of it's been back and forth about paying part of my salary even. So it's those direct and indirects that they kind of hung up on because they were just used to paying the operational costs. They had no problem paying with the debt service and the interest costs related to the plant, as long as they knew in advance, like if we had a major project going on at the plant, they wanted to be informed in advance so that they know that there may be a fairly large increase to their fee the following year.
Mhm.
So they want to be kept on the loop on the major projects also. So the languages in the contract will be incorporating all that kind of information also.
And then, once the agreement's in effect, it'll be backdated and...
It won't be backdated, it'll be from whatever date they sign going forward. The issue that comes with it, they do everything under town meeting, and town meeting's already gone by this year, so this is something that they would take under discussion with their sewer commissioners and be in play for the town meeting next year for approval. Basically, the rates are gonna double, is what we've been telling them. And it's pretty close to true that's gonna happen, about doubling the rate. They have concern about what the comprehensive wastewater management plan is gonna do, and with the plant requirements and the changes in the NIPD's discharge permits, and what increase in cost that could happen. Right now, they pay about $35,000 a year for their sewage being treated. So we're looking at going to 65 to 70-ish based on what we believe would be the new contract language. So it's a small amount of money, but like I said, we do handle all their wastewater here.
What's the time coverage for this contract?
It would be 3 10-1 years.
And this is per year? This amount per year?
What would happen is that we would do some kind of CPI increaser each year. Basically, either that or what happens is that our bill always lags a year with them because we don't submit the bill to them to the end of the fiscal year. When we know what our actual costs are and what all their flows are, so we bill them actual. So their bill usually goes out in September for the year prior, so we're always kind of lagging a year with them, just so you're aware of that. Nominal increases, I would assume.
What is their flow, like percentage of GPD or whatever, however you figure this
It's
stuff?
pretty small.
Very small.
1%?
I think it's in the 3 to 4% range.
And in terms of costs, where does this fall? 3 to 4% range, or is it less? Or?
Of our total budget,
Yeah,
it's hard to break out because the sewer enterprise fund is sewer division and wastewater treatment plant.
oh, right.
But if I look at the O&M costs of the wastewater treatment plant, I would say it is probably 5%.
So it's fairly close to what we're charging.
Yeah,
So they're getting a deal still.
they're getting a great deal right now because, like I said, they're not paying any debt service or interest payments.
Right. Okay.
So in addition to the CPI, anytime, like if we deal with nitrates, their rate goes up.
That's
It's
correct.
got nothing to do, so it can be driven up by something we work on internally or by just the general overall
Yeah.
cost of living.
I mean, if we have to do a $20 million upgrade to the plant for nitrogen reduction, they would have to share their cost of that. Also in the agreement will be BOD surcharges. That hasn't happened to date because they have the Brewmaster Brewery online
Mhm.
and some new restaurants up there. I assume their BOD is a little more elevated than it has been in the past years. I know our plant is reaching capacity for handling BOD also.
And do we probably don't test their effluent yet.
Yes,
We did some testing as part of, it was part of the nitrogen reduction study. And so we do have a sample of BOD at the town line, which is where the meter station is. And it is more than the current agreement. The current agreement was 300 milligrams per liter. And the day we did the sampling, it was about 500 milligrams per liter.
So by the time this all happens, they'll have gained $100,000 and they'll have saved $100,000.
Approximately.
So they're probably not in a big hurry to figure this out. Okay. And SEA has lawyers and they'll,
We have our city solicitor that will review the final agreement. They have a principal engineer that are assigned to this project who has done a number of intermunicipal agreements in the past. So we're using his expertise. Looking for his name here. Mark Thompson of their office. He's done drafting and reviewing. He's experienced in intermunicipal agreements for water and wastewater, most recently with intermunicipal agreements of Abington, Mass. And Kittery, Maine.
any, all in favor of approving the contract?
Aye.
Date for Claims Committee. Beginning of next meeting? Sure.
It's gonna be June 23? 5. No.
22? I thought it was still in spring, so hey.
22, actually
It's
technically it will be
That's-
summer.
It will be summer.
At what hour?
5? Is it 1 or 2? How many? Who's the
One
claim?
claim.
1? So 5:15,
5:15?
or is this a big claim?
No, not a big one.
Not a big claim,
Okay.
but a claim.
5:15?
And did we ever resolve that one on Prospect Place or whatever that is? Prospect Court? Where the storm drain backed up and flooded the foundation?
That was Franklin Street.
Oh.
The storm drain that backed up. Oh, you're talking Barrett Place.
Barrett, yes.
Yes, we did. We
Okay, so
denied
that's
that.
off our plate. Okay. All right, so 5:15. Gary, where's your iPhone?
Oh, I have my phone, I don't have an iPhone.
I think I may not be here the 22nd.
This is my other thing. Oh, geez, it's gone.
All right, and, okay, so next is a policy for sanitary sewer services.
What about summer schedule?
Oh, I'm sorry. I think, it sounds like we're gonna have a meeting on the 22nd, and then we're gonna just go with 1 and 1 for July and August.
Generally.
Comfortable with that?
Yeah. If we can get away with it without too much business going on, otherwise go with a special meeting. Short, 15, 20-minute meeting. With it.
And
We talked
the one meeting would be the second Wednesday,
Usually, yeah.
or, right,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
I was thinking if we could do something mid-month, each month for July and August. I don't. It's,
You wrote it down.
I wrote it down, but I think that will schedule away.
The money is out in the car.
So yeah, it'd be July 20th and August 17th that we were initially looking at.
July 20th?
Kind of the middle of the month. Last year we never got into a summer schedule, if you recall. There was just so many things going on.
Well, same thing. If we get to a point where you need contract signed or whatever.
We can have you come up with
We
some,
can always have you
Yeah.
come in.
we have some emergency to deal with.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine with me.
Okay.
Yeah, all right, we're on board.
And I actually didn't hear the August date.
17.
You want me to put it in an email to you, everyone, so you remember?
That'd be great.
Now that I have the phone, my life has changed.
Ah,
Now I don't
yeah,
have to
wait
read my
a
emails, so I
minute.
don't know
Oh.
what's happening with the.
Now that I ride a bike every day, I don't exercise.
All right, so now the policy for sanitary sewer services is still on the agenda. You just want to substitute different language.
Yeah. Basically, do you want to talk about that, or you want to take the campaign and leafleting next?
Oh, for some reason I've already crossed that off. Yes, I would like to talk about campaigning and leafleting.
Okay. I took your comments from the last board meeting, and you can see that they've been edited, and I left the changes on it so you could see and track the changes. A typo on the first one on the campaign and leafletting, typically a political or social one rather than typically political or social one. Time block scheduled, Saturdays and holidays, so basically the weekdays were kind of etched out. Weekday spaces under designated areas were taken away, and Saturday spaces were the public parking spaces immediately in front of this building and across the way. And the idea about conflicts, potentially conflicts, were taken out so that we can have conflicting parties on the site. And basically the changes that I heard from the last board meeting.
Jim?
Yeah, I only had one thought, and that was on the last item. Each solicitation area may have up to a maximum of 4. Right on the last,
Yep.
page 1. We may want to clarify what we mean by that, i.e. Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts,
That's why we call it solicitation for
Yeah.
for donations and sale of goods, because typically that's what it is. Boy
yeah,
Scouts, Girl Scouts fundraising, where you typically have parents and or chaperones with younger children.
I don't want politicians to interpret solicitation meaning them. We've already said they could only have 2 at the table. You see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know whether
Yeah,
you think it needs clarification or not.
Maybe charitable solicit, or charity, or nonprofit solicitation or something.
Typically when I encounter Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, sports teams, they're down by where you're throwing your stuff
Yeah.
in the paper recycling bin, or down that way. Is that still allowed for that kind of activity? So
Based on-
but the political stuff would all happen up here.
Everything would happen here.
So even the Girl Scouts, and they wouldn't be able to collect money down.
That's what came out of the last board meeting.
No, I thought we were still allowing them to set a table up down there.
Down there, in the recycling area, no.
No? For selling cookies?
It'd be
Collecting
nice.
money for
It'd
the
be nice,
soccer?
but are we gonna get one of them run over?
Oh, I don't know, that hasn't happened yet.
Well,
Where they stand is, where I see them is, they're just collecting money. I've seen them right by the glass and metal collection site. And if they're selling cookies, I've seen them set up tables that's in front of, but on the other side of the traffic flow through by the paper recycling area. There's quite a bit of room there.
yeah, but can
Lately
we
there's been a guy parked out there with a really cool looking car.
He's
He's
restrict
one of
them to
our
that?
gatekeepers.
Yeah, that's
That's his
It's a hot
kit
rod.
car, yeah.
Can we restrict them to that area? Well,
I thought the gatekeeper was gonna decide where to allow those solicitations
that's fine,
for that,
but
okay.
the
But
safe
camp-
area.
campaigning would happen
Campaigning
up
would
here.
not
That
pass
makes sense to me.
Yeah, it doesn't,
where the,
Because
campaigning,
campaigning that you're talking about, you could draw a crowd and you could have
Yeah.
3 or 4 or 10 people standing listening.
yeah,
Whereas kids doing stuff, you're just dropping a buck in the can
Yeah.
and moving on.
oh, I agree, I wanna be able to get to the
And
kids.
they really are out of the way of motor vehicle traffic.
Okay, Mimi has a,
I just want to say that leaving it up just to the discretion of the gatekeepers, I've not only done this stuff myself, but also I know people who've done it. If it's not cleared up, it depends on which gatekeeper you get, and some of them are nicer than others, or more willing to work with you. So I think it's nice if you could script it out more exact rather than leaving it up to the gatekeepers. If you could actually be more clear in the actual directions, from my own perspective of doing that. Just because it's, you don't want someone to drive up and say, oh, that gatekeeper's on, oh shucks, we have that person, so that's all.
Favoritism too.
And there's favoritism too, yeah.
I'll give it some minor edits for the next meeting.
Okay,
Unless you want to make a approval of what you were just talking about, that I incorporate language to allow solicitation to happen up near the actual waste disposal areas or recycling areas.
yeah, I would make a motion.
That way it moves the policy forward. I mean, it's,
I make a motion to approve the policy with amended language that will put to it for designation of the,
or do you want to see that final language first? It is going to be your policy.
Gary?
Well, yeah, I think we ought to see the final language, but what I would suggest is that under campaigning and leafleting, there's designated areas for that, and then under solicitation, there's designated areas for that. And then campaigning and leafleting, to me, is almost literal enough where I don't think you need to add anything. But solicitation, I think we may want to be more specific. I mean, it says nonprofit groups, non-private enterprise activities.
community organizations.
Community organizations, and we might want to say like athletics,
Yeah.
I don't know.
soccer.
I think you want to do several examples, but certainly not exclude to those kinds of things. Exclude those. They're not exclusive. Could be anyone.
Okay,
But it wouldn't be fundraising for political campaigns. I think that would be an example of what's not
Yeah.
solicitation.
What's not
Okay.
allowed.
great,
And maybe that just makes it simple enough. And, yeah, I think we should see it.
okay. Yeah, that's fine. Now we can talk about the policy for sanitary sewer services.
So what I did with this is I took the original 1999 policy that was crafted by the Board of Public Works and added some languages and changes to it to incorporate what we were looking for about below-grade street fixtures, things of that nature, which I'm not putting my fingers on my copy at the moment.
Here,
Thank you, Jim. So basically, we added some definitions from the old policy, plumbing fixtures, describing what a plumbing fixture is, below street grade, limits of ownership, and basically broke down responsibilities of parties. Thank you for the typo catch there, Jim. And I worked with Jim on this the other day about trying to get some last minute language in there about like underneath property owner's service responsibility. Basically, in the case of a backup, you should call dispatch to get someone out there so that we can determine if our main's obstructed. That's kind of our procedures that we do. But Jim felt it should be in the policy so that the public also knows exactly what they should do right off the bat when they see this policy, which would be mailed out as a flyer to all our customers at some point. We'll probably send it out with a water bill. That would take care of all our sewer customers at the same time. Also, under liabilities and claims process, we added the first sentence that the city shall not be liable for any damages caused by backflow from below street grade plumbing fixtures unless the Board of Public Works acknowledges that there's been a historic or persistent issue within the city layout that has not been addressed. That's kind of been the guiding principle that we've been having all along, so now it's more just formalizing it as part of your policy. And the other small changes were when the city redid the code of ordinances a few years ago, they changed chapters and sections around. So those are all current now also.
Now, we had, as we've been talking in the claims committee, and I'm sure you can remember instances like this in the past, we sometimes bump into two types of costs. There's the rare painting that happened to be leaning up against sitting on the floor leaning against the wall, and then there's the general cost of getting the junk out of the basement. And I was thinking that maybe we should be a little specific about the fact that we're not liable for the financial damages caused by the backflow, and in particular, we don't take responsibility for personal items that may be stored on the floor. I mean, I don't know if there's a way to say that. But
Well, that's what I thought I covered with the city shall not be held liable for any damages caused by backflow. That first sentence under liabilities and claims process.
Well,
or
to be more specific,
We could say
giving
including
examples
personal.
like personal items.
property or personal possessions.
Right.
I think that's a good point.
Yeah, basically you're saying you're storing the stuff in the basement, and
If you do and you have
Subject
low
to
grade. And this is
excessive
great.
moisture
Or just
from
including
lots of it.
personal property.
Yeah.
Just a comment when we're talking about that sentence, I'm wondering whether it would be clear, it says the city shall not be held liable for any damages caused by backflow from below street grade plumbing fixtures. I'm wondering whether it would be more accurate to say caused by backflow from the city sewer through below street grade plumbing fixtures.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, that's good.
The only thing with that is that Jim and I were talking about this earlier. We've had a recent claim for, actually two claims now, for stormwater backflows. So even though this is all about sanitary sewers, at some point we need to craft a policy for stormwater. We craft a policy that is for any interconnection to our utilities.
Why
Right.
could we not, I'm just not understanding the technical, I'm sure, but, just lock that onto here? Because it,
We could, it'd be very easy to do to incorporate it with stormwater also. That way it's basically a sanitary sewer, and they used to call them storm sewers, but storm
yeah.
drain policy.
is the department is now developing a stormwater policy and possibly a way to develop or charge for stormwater connections and so on. A fee, in other words, that's coming back.
We do have a fee already. If
You
you
do?
want to connect to let's say a catch basin or some part of our stormwater system, we charge an entry fee into it, just like we do for sewer entry.
Yeah,
Except the only thing that doesn't happen, there is no reoccurring cost of like getting a sewer bill by the quarter.
that's right.
There's no stormwater bill for that utility that you would use on a regular or
Seasonal
intermittent basis.
Yeah.
But that's part of the permit application process, and perhaps at some point in the future, if there is a connection to a stormwater, perhaps there's a quarterly fee of X dollars a quarter for that utility, that connection point. But that's a conversation. When I added this on there, I tried to make sure that we were dealing with stormwater flows also, which you see under below street grade. It says it's the elevation of roadway surface adjacent to the building or structure that receives wastewater or stormwater flows from the property. So I started working it because I've recently had those 2 stormwater claims.
And stormwater is an act of God. You can't control the amount of stormwater that comes through a line.
Well, that was kind of what we had. Storm systems aren't designed to handle a 500-year
That's right.
precipitation event, so
Yeah.
it's not gonna take everything all the time.
Our city system is based on a 10-year design event, so it's a relatively regularly
You're gonna have
reoccurring storm
frequent
of small
flooding
nature.
and flash flooding.
So, you'll,
I'll tweak it again,
great.
not a problem,
Thank you,
no problem.
but also thank you for doing it, 'cause
Yeah, no,
wanting
we've-
this
we've
for
sat
a
here.
long time.
And then finally, the Solid Waste Education Committee update. Oh, okay, MJ suggested that unless the other committee member wanted to speak extemporaneously about. All right, so we'll skip that this time. Gary, anything else that we should talk about?
No, I don't think so.
It's not even 7 o'clock.
Oh
Well-
my God, we should,
I'll
This
bet,
is really-
I'll bet it's
we
still
really-
light outside. Jen, anything you wanted to talk about?
Hey, in 15 minutes, the Yankees are playing the Sox.
did we win last night?
Yes, we did.
Oh, good. Tell us.
So you're good.
I'm good.
Yes, 2 items. In your board package was PowerPoint presentation that was done at Northampton High School on May 25th from the Attorney General's Office called the Open Meeting Law, Balancing Government Transparency with Government Efficiency. I thought the board might find this informative for your reading pleasure about open meeting laws.
And did staff attend that?
I believe Laura made it to it. I'm trying to remember who I actually got this from. I did not go.
Yeah.
It's the night of a board meeting, wasn't
I believe it was the night of the board
But
meeting.
she got out soon enough to get over there.
And
And there was someone else there.
Felix Harvey went.
Who, you? Oh,
No, I was here, but
oh, good.
Laura and I had talked before the
Yeah.
board meeting about the fact that she could get both.
What'd you say?
I said Felix Harvey also attended.
And the other one was just about the tornado damage or the non-tornado damage that we had. We did have some hail, we had some trees come down, some minor flooding issues, but we lucked out big time.
Yeah.
And
Because I thought we were in the track of it.
where did the trees come down?
Sheldon Field, miscellaneous branches here and there, so some power interruptions, but relatively minor. The crews were done, I think, at 10 o'clock that night.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, it's pretty
Oh,
minor
yeah.
damage.
Oh,
There was a fabulous photograph that I saw somewhere today, I think it was related to an article in the New York Times. And in a satellite photo from space, you can see it's a 20-mile track.
Oh, I saw that photo, yeah.
Is it 20 miles or
I
30?
thought it was 39.
Yeah.
39?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
amazing.
growing to up to a half a mile wide.
Yeah.
It's very, really cool.
Yeah,
Tell you, the coverage that Channel 22 gave that was amazing,
yeah, it was good.
really amazing.
Sometimes I think, well, we really lucked out.
Yeah.
But I thought
We
we
did.
were gonna get hit with something, so.
I was working in West Springfield at that time, and I was, the people who were in the house where I was working, we were all out in the driveway looking at this thing build, but we had no idea it was gonna turn into a tornado. And we stood out and watched it until the hail started, but the sky was fabulous.
Oh,
We had,
yeah.
Yellow and
Yeah.
angry and.
we had hail the size of quarters here. I was
Yeah.
impressed.
He was out picking them up and bringing them in.
Put them in the freezer.
We flew out to Denver at this point about 10 days ago, and American Airlines called in the middle of the night to say our flight was canceled. They had had 4-inch hail balls in Dallas the afternoon before, and so many planes were damaged that American canceled 700 flights. But think about a 4-inch hail ball.
It's
Yeah,
a softball.
Yeah. So we flew on Delta. Okay, Jim?
Yeah, just one quick thing. At one of the previous board meetings I had, Ned and I were looking for volunteers in the water system, request for proposals that's out, and Jim Dostal and David Shear both volunteered. That RFP is now on the street, and wanted to make sure you each get a copy of that.
yeah.
And we also heard from Dave Reckow, who called me recently and expressed an interest in helping the city evaluate proposals related to that water system study and also to be involved in the study as the work moves along. So we're really excited to hear from Dave and have him back on the water system side helping us out. So.
I'll call him on June 20th to let him know that we're happy to see him and wish him a happy birthday.
Is it the same as your birthday?
Yeah.
I was thinking, God, what a politician. No wonder you.
Really?
You know his birthday?
Yeah. Gary?
I was curious about the Dewberry report, which is probably 10 years old now.
Oh, yeah.
So this is looking at stuff that needs to be refreshed, or is it something above and beyond, or in addition to, or?
It's in addition to really above and beyond updating. I think the one part of the RFP is related to updating the work that Dewberry did, but we're looking at updating our hydraulic model. We're looking at evaluating not only the distribution system down here in the city, but also raw water transmission mains from the reservoirs to the plant, and also the treated water transmission mains that run from the plant down into the city to make sure that we're maintaining those. Also looking at sort of an asset management style evaluation of all our underground piping, looking at the age of pipe material and consequence of failure type of analysis, so we can come up with an intelligent way of replacing all our underground assets in a sort of a systematic means. And the ultimate goal is to come up with a 20-year capital improvement plan that we can use for planning water rates the next few years.
It also makes us eligible for state and federal money, doesn't it?
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So pretty comprehensive. I think we've got everything in there.
David?
What's that?
Thank you.
All set.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
I second it.